Good.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you this afternoon to the County of El Paso's full board meeting for the month of September.
Good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, September 15th, 2021. And this is the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees for the County of El Paso School Board. This meeting will also be accessible via Microsoft Teams and via YouTube for the public. The time is 1:01 p.m. We currently have Chair Quilty, Vice Chair Salcido, Trustee Hurtado, Trustee Van Hook, and Trustee Asensio physically present. Chair Quilty, we currently have one person signed up to address the board, Ms. Berenice Acosta.
Thank you, Joanna. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce to you two newest members of our benefits HR team. The first member is Claudia Soriano. She was recently promoted within our HR office. She started about a year ago with us. She started in the training section, and she was recently promoted into the benefits section. So Claudia, if you wanted to say a few words.
Hi, members of the board, thank you. It is a pleasure to be here and to meet you. And like Ms. Berenice mentioned, I literally just turned my first year anniversary last week, September 8th. I was very excited, and I think I have been welcomed all around in the Human Resources Department, so I'm so glad that I've actually joined a family away from home. And I'm just very eager to go ahead and learn and be able to be part of this benefits division and see how I can go ahead and grow and do the best I can in this. I think it's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome. Welcome.
Welcome, Claudia.
Thank you, Claudia. The next newest member is our Aetna representative. It's longer, we've been waiting for a while. We've had the Aetna representative vacancy for a while, since November of last year. So Chloe Bernard actually started with us in July, towards the end of July. And she comes with over 5 years of Aetna experience, specifically in the Medicare section. So with us today, Chloe is here virtually. So Chloe, if you can hear us, if you want to say a few words.
Thank you so much, Veteran. Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it, introducing me. I'm so excited to work with you guys, and I truly appreciate all the warm welcomes I've been given so far, and I look forward to working with everyone in the future. It's really nice to meet you.
Thank you, Chloe.
Welcome, Chloe.
Okay. The consent agenda consists of items 2 through 6. Does any member of the board wish to remove an item from the consent agenda to discuss in more detail? Does any member of the audience or staff wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Okay.
With that said, I'd like to ask for a motion to accept consent agenda item 2 through 6.
All motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Trustee Asensio,
Aye.
Trustee Van Hook,
Aye.
Trustee Hurtado,
Aye.
Vice Chair Salcido,
Aye.
Chair Quilty.
Aye.
Motion carries. Regular agenda item number 7, discuss and take appropriate action on the ratification of the first 2 one-year options to renew the contract between the County of El Paso and TEV Benefits Group, Inc. 2021-0643 for the online benefit enrollment system.
Thank you, Joanna. Once again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Berenice Acosta of the Human Resources Department. On October 1st, 2018, the Commissioners Court awarded RFP number 18-034 to TEV Benefits Group for a benefit online enrollment system services for the county. Based on the award of the RFP and the response to the RFP by TEV, a service agreement was developed. The purpose of the agreement is to provide the county with a benefits online enrollment system. The term of the contract is for a 3-year period with a renewal option of 2 additional 1-year periods. This agreement represents an extension of the term beginning on January 1st of 2022 and ending on December 31st, 2022. At this time, does the board have any questions with regard to this renewal agreement?
My question is, what's been the experience of the the employees. Any feedback?
So this is a much user-friendly system, so we really haven't had any issues from employees accessing it or being able to navigate the system itself. Joanne, I don't know if you've received any additional feedback, but the feedback that I've seen is that they like it better. It's easier to navigate, easy to access because it is web-based, so they can access it from anywhere. They don't necessarily have to be connected to their county internet.
Yes, definitely user friendly. We've even been able to change paper processes to online process because of the navigator, such as the qualifying events. They used to do them on paper, but now they can just do them within the system. So it makes it a lot easier and of course less paper trail where they can just add them to the web.
Is there any cost differential going to the options of the next two that we're about to go into?
No, the cost stays the same. The per employee per month cost stays the same, so we won't see any, I mean, it's based on how many employees we have in the system. So of course, if we have more employees in the system, then it would increase, but the overall per member or per employee per month cost is not changing.
Anybody else have any questions?
I do. So under the hub agreement, is this not something that they could do? Or is this having another benefits group?
It's an actual software, an online enrollment software. So correct me if I'm wrong, Hub, Randy, I don't think Hub has the.
No, she's talking about the online enrollment system.
Yeah. So it's just a separate broker, TV is a broker, so we went through them. We actually submitted an RFP a couple of years ago, and TEV is the one that was awarded the RFP to provide this for the town.
Is TB a local company?
Yes.
Yeah, and their bid was much lower than every other offer on the table
Is it?
by a large margin.
Yes.
Any other questions? I'd like to ask for a motion to accept regular agenda item number 7.
I move that we accept that regular agenda item number 7.
Can I get a second, please?
I'll second.
Trustee Atencio,
Aye.
trustee Van Hu,
Aye.
trustee Hurtado,
Aye.
vice chair Salcido,
Aye.
chair Quilty.
Aye.
Motion carried. Regular agenda item number 8, discuss and take appropriate action on the third amendment to the Aetna Master Service Agreement 2021-0060 for plan year 2022.
Thank you, Joanna. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, as you can see, we have a couple of agreements on your agenda today to seek your approval. This agenda here is to seek the court's approval on the third amendment to the Aetna Master Service Agreement for the third-party administrator for health and dental plan, and of course the related benefits. In 2018, the county did award RFP number 18-030 to Aetna Life Insurance to serve as the county's third-party administrator for the county's health and dental plan and related benefits. Of course, based on the RFP, the county, with the assistance of our consultants and Aetna, the development of the first and second amendment to the existing master service agreement was developed. The master service agreement sets forth the terms and conditions under which Aetna agrees to render services and under which the county agrees to receive and compensate Aetna for such services. Those services, a quick overview, it's the TPA claims administration services for medical and dental plans, managed medical and dental provider network, pharmacy benefit programs, stop loss reinsurance, COBRA HIPAA administration, disease management programs, wellness programs and initiatives, employee assistance program, the retiree medical insurance, Medicare Advantage plan, third-party administrator eligibility services, and the IRS Section 125 pre-tax plan administration. The term of the contract is for a 3-year period with a renewal option of 3 additional 1-year periods. This amendment agreement represents the first of the 3 renewal options with a term beginning on January 1st of 2022 and ending on December 31st, 2022. The amendment maintains the existing terms, which will result in a 3% medical and dental fee increase. to the county, which would be $46.44 per employee per month, or an annual estimated increase of $41,000 in fees for health services, and $2.40 per employee per month, or an annual estimated increase of $1,500 in fees for dental services. The amendment also includes enrollment of Aetna's Point Solutions Management Service prescription program. The PSM prescription program provides a co-pay program related to services to plan sponsors that include guidance on benefit design for specialty products and assistance to members to secure available co-pay assistance for specialty drugs through the various programs funded by pharmaceutical companies. So this is the Prudent RX program that we have been discussing with the board with regards specifically to specialty drugs. Of course, with this amendment, the pharmacy discounts are expected to result in additional savings to the county for plan year 2022. Does the board have any questions with regards to this agreement?
You know, my first question is that there's got to be something to offset $41,000. It's a lot of money. And you commented that potentially there's going to be additional discounts. Is there any forecast?
Yes.
I mean, based on our years of statistics, we ought to have some idea as to what that savings would be to help offset.
Yes. So in its entirety, as soon as the discounts are applied, we're looking at a $1.2 million in savings throughout the course of this renewal.
In addition to,
Yes.
to previous.
Yes. So this is additional savings.
Additional.
Yes. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Randy?
Those numbers, yes.
Randy, it's almost too good to be true. I mean,
Well, so one of the things that's happening this year, it's a big part of the Aetna approved offer, is rebates from drug manufacturers have increased substantially. And so actually that's only been prevalent starting in the last 60 days. And it's not just Aetna, or seeing other pharmacy benefit managers improve their rebate offers. The highest one I've seen is about an increase of 50%, which is huge.
wow.
And so in the renewal offer that Anissa is describing, this is the just the operation of the pharmacy benefit program. So out of that 1.2 million is about probably close to $500,000 is the increase in rebates, which is, I think it's more like 400. And we currently receive right about $1 million. So that's about a 40% increase there. And then the remainder of the savings comes from improved discounts on each drug transaction. So there's a database referred to as the average wholesale price. And that's the starting point. So whatever the drug is, they all have a number that ties back to the database. And then we receive a discount off the average wholesale price. So that is increasing the discount that we receive, and that part's driving the other 800,000.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Randy, did we look at contracting with other vendors like CVS or Walgreens? I know with the hospital, we were mandated to go to CVS, but we took a huge discount. But we had to go to only one location. If we went to another, it was higher. So did we look at other vendors, see if they would, I mean, it was like, I think one of my prescriptions, I used to pay $10 and it was $1. Another one, I didn't have to pay for it. It was free.
Yeah, so in the RFP process, which was several years ago, yes, there were quite a few other offers. And Aetna's actually owned by CVS. So the pharmacy benefit manager for the county is CVS. We currently have I would say a broad network. So a broad network means you can go to practically any drugstore. And that could be changed to a narrow network where you could say, and typically when you talk CVS, it's, and you say, we're going to throw another pharmacy chain out of the network, and that would be Walgreens. And so those were options presented during the RFP process too. And that would be something you could consider doing now. It doesn't require a change in the contract. It's just a change in the instructions to Aetna. So if you wanted to eliminate Walgreens from being an in-network pharmacy, you could do that with them and you would gather, some additional savings from that.
What would be, could you share with the board what that savings would look like? Is it pennies or is it something that we really would be interested in?
And we'd have to get Aetna to run the numbers for us, but I'm sure they always jump at the opportunity to eliminate Walgreens as a competitor.
Well, sometimes it's needed, and so if the knowledge about this.
Historically, in the county, every time that comes up, and there've been surveys conducted, the majority of utilization for pharmacy goes through Walgreens still. So CVS is a late arriver in El Paso, and they've added some additional stores, which is good. They still haven't ramped up to what they're doing in other parts of the market, which is to implement what they call the Minute Clinic. So there would be a clinic inside the CVS, but they've been talking about it for a couple of years. They do have it available in larger metropolitan markets. So yeah, there could be some additional savings for that. But you would also, historically, it's a love-hate relationship with Walgreens anyhow. People complain about going to Walgreens, but if you tell them they're going to take them out of the network, and they have a bid over that. And last time we checked, and we could check again, it was close to 80% of all prescriptions go through Walgreens. So CVS would be happy to point out that, and you can see it too, wherever you see a Walgreens, there's usually a CVS within 2 blocks, but not for every Walgreens. So the Walgreens still has more stores in this market than CVS.
Well, if we could see what the savings would be, not only to the county, but also to the employee. And maybe, I understand, I mean, I was at Albertsons and we moved to CVS and oh my God. But nonetheless, out of pocket was hardly anything. So since we're going to increase, it sounds like $41. We need to make sure that we give the employee something.
Yeah.
And if it would be.
So the employee cost share is determined by the board and the county. And so that would be, there would be savings to the county, and then the county could determine if they want to raise or lower co-pays or change the actual benefit structure, and that's how the employee would receive the savings.
Yeah.
Question. Oh, I don't know if this is a separate conversation, but are we making any allocation for maintenance meds and mail order?
Yes, we have. I'm sure, no, that's like a trivia question.
Sorry.
Well, let's go back here. That's a mandatory mail order requirement, so it's optional. But those are some things that could be considered. You could say all maintenance drugs have to go through mail order. And then CVS would be happy to say too, if you want people to buy 90-day supplies at local drugstores, they can make that happen at all the broad network, or they could also narrow it down to say just at CVS. So you could say you could drive more utilization through CVS with that decision, which would cause them to give you probably a better deal on maintenance drugs, so that you still get the best discount on maintenance drugs through the mail order program. And then mail order through the local drugstores is not as big of a difference between the discount formula anymore between retail and mail. And especially if you were to put it with CVS, who happens to be the PBM, then it would be almost identical.
Okay.
But your utilization through mail order historically has been low.
Any other questions? That's a really good point, Renee. Very good. If nobody else does, I have one more question. I'm going to address it to HR. I know this is going to sound a bit rhetorical, but again, I don't mean to be so negative, but it's almost too good to be true. We desperately need something like this for the pool. Okay, it's obvious that but why wouldn't we do this? I mean, this is like dream come true. What's HR's spin on this?
Our recommendation would be to, request for the board to approve this agreement because it's bringing savings, which we absolutely need, savings to the plan, but it's also going to bring this Prudent RX program is also going to benefit the members, especially in the specialty
Huge.
medication, which is very expensive. And that's where we see our highest cost come from. So our recommendation is to move forward with.
Any other comments or like to ask for a motion to accept regular agenda item number 8 as proposed?
I propose that we accept regular agenda item 8 as proposed.
We need a second.
A second.
Thank you.
Trustee Atencio,
Aye.
trustee Van Hu,
No,
trustee Hurtado,
Aye.
vice chair Salcido,
aye.
chair Quilty,
Aye.
motion carried. Regular agenda item number 9, discuss and take appropriate action on the final 2 one-year options to renew the contract 2021-0642 between the County of El Paso and Hub International for health and dental consultation services.
And I know we already discussed the previous item, but just so you know, trustee Van Hu, we took the notes with regards to your question. And so during the next meeting, we will bring that data, if Edna has it, that way we
Thank
can
you.
provide that information to the board. And if the board at that time wishes to make changes to the plan, mid-year changes and things of that nature, then we'll add an item to the following meeting. So you all can discuss and take action with that.
Thank you.
With that, will you also have the additional discounts? Sandy, will you provide them to?
They'll give us the detail, and the detail of the offer is in that backup of the agenda.
Thank you.
Of course. For this item here, the purpose of this agenda item is to seek the board's approval on the final option to renew the contract between the county and Hub International for health and dental consultation services. As also in 2018, the Commissioners Court awarded RFP number 17-039 to Hub International for consultation services for health and dental benefits for the county. Based on the award of the RFP and the response by Hub International, a service agreement was developed. The purpose of that agreement is to provide the county with an independent benefit consultant who can provide advice and assistance to the county and its risk board for employee health and dental benefits, management, and act as its representative with third-party providers and any other parties as needed. The term of the contract is for a 3-year period with a renewal option for 2 additional 1-year periods. This agreement represents the final extension of the term beginning on January 1st, 2022 and ending on December 31st, 2022. At this time, does the board have any questions?
After this, better need to go through an RFP process for next year?
Yes, great question, Vice Chair Salcido. Yes, during calendar year 2022, we'll be going out for an RFP for these services, and we will bring, of course, that information to the board with the selection once that occurs before the end of the year. That way, you all can approve a new contract.
Any other questions? No? Okay.
Yeah.
Was there, in the agreement for Hub, is there an annual escalator charge or is it the same rate?
It's the not to
Not to increase?
Correct. By all means, that's okay.
We like it.
And most years, we don't reach our maximum amount. This year, we've come in well below that.
All right.
So, question, so what else, Chairman's last question on the last item, any HR issues that need to be brought up before we vote? Or any staff recommendations?
And no, sir, we've actually been very happy and pleased with the services that Hub has provided to our staff and to the county and to the board. So we recommend for approval of this final extension.
Thank you.
All right. With that said, I'd like to ask for a motion to accept regular agenda item number 9.
Motion to accept?
The second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Atencio,
Aye.
Trustee Lanchu,
Aye.
trustee Hurtado,
Aye.
vice chair Salcido,
Aye.
chair Quilty,
Aye.
motion carries. Regular agenda item number 10, discuss and take appropriate action to accept the monthly report from Hub International Benefits Consulting. Do you want me to share, Randy, or you got it?
Pardon?
You want me to share, or you?
Should I even log into the?
I got it.
And then also, if you could just have handy as I go through this report, I'll make a reference to the auditor's letter. That'll be toward the end. If you have that handy, then show a couple pages from the auditor's letter as well.
First.
So I'm Randy McGraw with Hub International and pleased to be here. I'll proceed to go through the report.
Yeah.
When it's ready. So I wait for it to come up. This report covers claims data through the month of July. Then, of course, the auditor's letter, which you approved, contains figures that run all the way through August. So there's always that 1 month lag.
And you only have good news, right?
It's better.
There you go. See?
Especially.
Be careful what you ask for.
So there's a good thing, it's just kind of fill in the time a bit. So your last week of claims expense was probably the lowest that it's been forever.
Wow.
Normally, your weekly expense runs in the 400,000 plus range, and there have been some weeks where it's in excess of $1 million.
Yeah.
And it's it was a week where I looked at it, like I said before, every time the email comes in, there's a little bit of hesitation for you. They can open it to see what's today's news. But last week was closer to $250,000, which is so low, it makes me wonder if it's one of those too good to be true type of situations. Or, it could be. So that's what that week is reflecting is claims expenses. And so it makes me wonder, did they not process claims for half the week or whatever? But that's just the thing that you just would automatically think. But that's definitely a good sign to see it that low. And then also with reference to prescription drugs and rebates, the month of September is a month that we receive quarterly rebates from Aetna. So they pay out their rebates on a quarterly basis, and September's a rebate month, and that's generally averaging about another $250,000. So that's not reflected in any of these numbers today. And then based on action from the county attorney's office and recovery of funds through ARPA, it appears that the county will be able to transfer $600,000 from ARPA funding into the risk pool fund to help offset some of the COVID-related expenses. So revenue side of the equation this month is going to look real good in September. So, with the low claims week, pharmacy rebates, $600,000 recovery, all great news to be receiving. And none of that is reflected in any of what we're looking at today. So it's I even hate to say cautiously optimistic that it's looking better right now.
Right.
So, yes, right now, on page 3, I believe it is, the medical inflation rate for gross claims expense is 16%. The pharmacy inflation rate is 2.7. So that's been going down some. It's been going up for a long time. And we've commented on that practically every meeting. So it's moving down, and that's in a good direction. So theoretically, the consumption of prescription drugs should be a leading indicator of what's happening inside the medical side of the plan. So things look like they're trending down there. Dental inflation is currently at 12.9%. And that's just kind of a weird number because all of these numbers benchmark the average cost per person through July compared to July of last year. And this, so of course, July of last year, we were under the lockdown, nobody was going to the dentist. So it makes it look like that relative change is higher than it would normally be. But the dental plan itself is running well. On the following page 4 is the historical linear chart of the inflation trend lines. And in the lower right corner is the summary from the auditor's report for the month of August. So the month of August, we still had a net loss of $465,000. And year to date, expenses are exceeding revenues by $774,000. These are the auditor's figures. But bear in mind, that's taken into consideration the millions of dollars that the county has infused into the plan and outside of the normal source of revenue. And the fund balance as of August 31 was just under $800,000, which is good because we've had some months where it's down to 100,000 or 200,000. So let's hope that trend continues. On the next page, just a quick summary on the claims. On the high cost claims, for example, in our tracking, in the reporting for the risk pool board, we have pages that show coming up by month, any claimant with claims greater than $50,000. And in July, there were 7 that made that report. And July was a big month in terms of claims dollars, if you recall. And then 4 people have exceeded the $300,000 deductible year to date. And our discount factor on medical claims through Aetna is at 70.4%, still a good number. On page 6, this is what I would refer to as our dashboard report. And so again, the far right-hand column is the one I tend to focus on first, the average cost per member per month. And you can see 2021 is year-to-date, so this is 7 months worth of data. And we're currently at 507 compared to where we were a year ago at 441. A year ago was through December of last year. If you take a look too, in this one, I like to point out as well, in the middle, where it's taken the data and comparing it by the plan that people are enrolled in, the core plan is averaging $602 per member per month, and the consumer-driven health plan at $380. So again, that's the reason for all of the education and communications and marketing to employees about the value of the consumer-driven health plan. And it still outperforms the core plan. And other than that, you can see, the dental plan down at the bottom in the far right or the lower right column. If we look back at 2019, which was the last normal year before the pandemic, the average cost per member per month was $20. This year to date, we're at 21, so we haven't really moved the needle much. But last year in 2020, when people stopped going to the dentist, it had dropped to 17, and that's what's causing that, whatever it was, 12.9% pace of inflation. If we go on to the next page, this is claims by month. This reflects medical, pharmacy, and dental claims. And so the right-hand column is the month of July. And you can see the month of July, like I mentioned, there are a lot of claims that came in that month, just right under $3 million total expense for the month of July. If we move on to actually was page 8, we could pause because now this page, unfortunately, is a 2-page report. Some years we've been able to get all the months and claims greater than $50,000 per month on one page, but this year has been, I can't say the word I want to say, different than all the other prior years. Inside joke. Page number 9 reflects the results for July. July is in the bottom there, and there you can see the 7 claimants that appeared on the earlier report, identifying them in excess of 50,000. You can see the two top claimants were newborns. And that's kind of been the pattern for the whole year is these surprise claims show up. And of course, commissioners, especially in the budget session, ask, what could we have done to stop that? And the county does take advantage of many programs that Aetna has available to outreach employees directly and try to keep them on track with good care, including ones for newborn. And so our numbers are looking better in outreach there. But every now and then something happens and you get surprised with a high dollar claim in that category. So that was part of the reaction in the month of July when the claims dollars started rolling in on a weekly basis, and in 1 week they were greater than $1 million just in a week, where we'd be looking for $1 million to be more like a 2-week number as well. And there you can also see who the primary provider is. So typically claims in greater than 50,000 is going to be due to hospital admissions. And you can see too that the hospital of choice prevalence where people end up the most, hospitals of Providence, part of the tenant organization, and hence part of that rationale to recommend the ACO concept, since the majority of our population is going to tenant anyhow, to take advantage of enhanced savings that tenant offers when tenant becomes the exclusive provider of a hospital setting. So it'll be interesting to see how the enrollment results go this year during open enrollment. Because we're basically, to refresh your memory, we've got the two plans, the core plan and the consumer-driven health plan. And we're taking those two same plans. They're still going to continue to be offered just as they are, unless we make any changes in the pharmacy stuff, under the broad network that we have. And the same two plans will also appear under a tenant ACO network. And then the same two plans will appear under a UMC narrow network. And each one has the two options come at lower payroll deductions than what's proposed for employees under the broad network. And then to refresh your memory on that part too, the commissioners voted or decided to cap the increase on payroll deductions under the broad plan at 10%. So no employee is going to see a greater than 10% change in their payroll deduction. And if they migrate into the ACO plan, it's essentially going to be no increase to them in terms of a payroll deduction. And if they migrate into the UMC narrow network, that one comes at a 5% reduction to the increases under the broad network. So they would fall somewhere in the middle. But no employee stayed in the same category they are would perceive a increase greater than 10%. And then of course we still have a fair amount of people in the core plan, and members in the core plan, if they migrate to the consumer-driven health plan, would see reductions, pretty substantial reductions in their payroll deductions.
And if I may, Randy, the employees will still have an opportunity to participate in the wellness initiatives where they can see up to a 6% discount. So while we're, some employees, if they don't participate, will see a 10% if they stay in the traditional plans. But if they do participate in those wellness initiatives, such as doing their wellness screening, their HRA, and being tobacco free, and they stay in the traditional plan, they'll see a 6% discount. So in essence, they would see a 4% increase. Just want to make sure that
That's great news.
we don't forget about those.
So Randy, are you saying that in tier 1, it would be UMC, and then tier 2 would be both T-HOP and UMC? Who's on tier 1?
Tier 1 meaning like the highest level of benefit. In the current plan designs, which will continue to be offered, under the core plan, there's a slightly higher level of benefits for UMC. Mm-hmm. Tier 2 is what people would typically refer to as your in-network PPO provider, and that contains all the other in-network hospitals, both tenant and HCA. And then tier 3 is out of network in the current plan. Under the ACO plan, tier 1 is going to be tenant, hospitals of Providence. And out of network, it'd be everybody else, including UMC. And under the UMC narrow network, tier 1 is going to be UMC, and out of network is going to be everybody except UMC.
Thanks for the clarification.
The copays are the same, deductibles are the same, drug copays are the same in each plan, or cost sharing.
Thank you.
Sure. So page number 10.
Well, I have one more question.
Go ahead.
Okay, so we saw in July 2 newborn. The scope of services that the Edna rep provides, is she allowed to speak to the pregnant mom? Because see, what I was thinking, once you identify them as needing additional health care before they're born, we're gonna try to keep them out of the NICU. Why wouldn't they go to a high-risk physician? I know there's a handful here in El Paso, but they would go there and then they would come back to their OB, deliver them. That might be able to keep them out of the NICU. The high-risk physician might be able to catch or identify something wrong with the baby during the pregnancy and kind of fix it, so when the baby's born, the baby will be okay.
And we actually, through Aetna, we do have what's called a Beginning Right program. So this is a program that within their first 16 weeks, correct me if I'm wrong, John, the first 16 weeks of their pregnancy, they're able to participate in a survey. We also incentivize them if they do participate in this survey to identify whether they're a high-risk pregnancy or not. They get a $300 gift card. And so we do have some individuals who participated in this program. Some of them have been identified in high risk, and so they go through that program with Aetna to mitigate those. We do know that in some cases there's been high risk that they've been outreach to. Aetna contacts them and sees to engage them, and so they decided not to, and so then get those high cost claims. But and it does have a trigger in their system that if someone has been identified as a high risk pregnancy, they do that outreach and contact them to try to engage them in the program they have.
Okay, and then my last question. Which Medicaid program does the county prefer to work with? Because a lot of these pregnant women actually do apply for Medicaid and they give them the Medicaid, so and it would not pay, it would be El Paso First and or Superior. So I wonder, out of all these newborns, if you could tell us, Randy, for just this year, how many, well, these are Edna's. Well, I would assume those are Edna's, but how many actually applied for the Medicaid? Because we had many members all go in and say, do I qualify? And they did, based on the salary they make. So yeah, a lot of them, I guess, Edna wouldn't be Medicaid moms.
So if a person has both Medicaid and coverage through the employer sponsor, the plan sponsor pays primary to Medicaid, regardless of who they pick. And we don't have any records that would show who's eligible or who applied for Medicaid, and I'm not sure that the county collects that. Aetna may collect it for purposes of coordination and benefit, but it really shouldn't be an issue because the plan has to pay person if they have Medicaid. So in order for Medicaid to assume the liability, they would have to drop their coverage into the county plan.
Well, and we've seen that. Or they come back and once the baby is born, they don't put the baby in their Edna, they put the baby in their Medicaid.
Well, they can still do that when the baby's born.
Okay, thank you.
So page 10 is the ranking of the high cost claimants. And you can see the 4 individuals that are in excess of the deductible right now. So we are in receipt too of the renewal for the reinsurance coverage. We've had several in-depth discussions on top loss coverage, et cetera. And it was just received yesterday, I think. So they had said, you know, in our own forecasting, we start with a 15% anticipation of an increase in the premium. And that's essentially Aetna offered a 14.9% increase and sent it to us. And like we had jokingly said in past discussions, this is a perennial topic between the county and Aetna. It is arguing over the right stop loss premium. So of course we went right back to Aetna right after they gave the renewal and told them it wasn't good enough. And so they went back and re-examined and sharpened their pencil. I believe now it's at about a 9.9% increase, which I would say is good. The 14.9 would be within what we would expect to see in the industry. And you can see on this report too, already for the year, Aetna has reimbursed, and this is through July, about $1.4 million, but they collect, and we'll see it on the summary page in the forecast, closer to $3 million, I think.
And so just if I may add, Randy, we will be bringing the stop loss reinsurance renewal rate for plan year 2022 during the next month's fiscal board meeting, due to the fact that we just received the quotes or the proposals from Aetna. So we'll bring that and we'll go over that with the board next month.
So the next slide is showing our enrollment. And you can see it stayed pretty stable throughout the course of the year. We're the green bar, and again goes through July. And page 12, there's the ratio or the numbers between the core plan, which has 50%, 56% of the population enrolled, and the consumer-driven health plan at 44%. So there's a fair number of employees, 1,421, that if they want to migrate into the consumer-driven health plan, won't see a rate increase in their payroll reduction if they were to do that. And they would receive the county's contribution to their health savings account. On page 13, just given a historical bar chart of the average cost per member per month going back to 2012, so quite a ways back. And you can see, you know, how the curve or the line, the trend line jumps for 2021. And it's just in a very unusual, unfortunate year for the county. Hopefully, all those strange events are resolved and we go back to a more predictable pattern. On page 14, this gives you a good graphic representation of the average cost between the core plan, which is the red line, and the blue line, which is the consumer-driven health plan. So again, we put this on here because the commissioners, especially if we're meeting with them earlier in the year, so in years past, we might wait until July or August to get into the budget negotiations. But what the county has adopted more recently is to start meeting and giving the commissioners quote updates with regards to budget as early as March and April. And so sometimes when they're looking at that dashboard report in the first part of the year, it looks upside down just because it's 1 month or so, and the consumer-driven health plan might be averaging a higher cost than the core plan. And then that prompts the question, well, if that's the case, why do we even offer it? But you can see, if you'll just wait long enough for the claims data to fill up the pipeline of information, that historically it's a good option for employees and a good option for the plan itself, too, in terms of cost. On page 15, these are the trend lines. On the left-hand side is the medical trend line. So you can see June was a little bit of a dip down. July is up there. August is going to be a little bit lower, and hopefully September will turn that trend down. And you can see on the right-hand side, the pharmacy plans start to level off, which is great news as well. And on page 16 is medical and prescription drug combined together. Page 17 is the dental plan. And so we are the yellow line on the screen. And you can see at the beginning of the year, we're way down there after the pandemic, lockdown, et cetera. And then all of a sudden in about March, people start going to the dentist again, which their plan gets paid in April, May, and June. So you can see, even though it has that big percentage change, we're right back to where we left off a few years ago. And anything in my mind under $21 is a good per member per month mark, especially for the good benefits that we have here. Your dental plan is better than most average employer dental plans. And we've looked at quite a few lately. Some of the larger carriers, such as MetLife, for example, for a plan like you chart or you have, would make the employee-only rate almost close to $40 these days, and we're nowhere near doing that. So the dental plan has been helping to subsidize some of the expenses from the medical plan over the years. Let me continue on. Go on to the next page, to the forecast page. So as where we stand with Commissioners Court is we've had multiple meetings. The overall funding increase for the plan is still, in the recommendation we've given to the court is at 37%. When the court caps the payroll deduction increase at 10%, then that means they pick up the extra slack on that. So the actual impact to the county is larger than the 37%. And of course, the need for that is just due to the increase in claims that we've seen on all the prior pages. So one thing I want to do here too, to pause and just kind of touch on briefly, is the revenue side of the equation. So there's a better understanding of where does the money come from and where does it go. And so at this point, we can switch to the auditor's letter. And they're page number 6. That one. So if you can make it a little bit bigger too, I can see it on my screen. But so the top part of this report on page 6 from the auditors is they're accounting for the revenues. And so the county takes payroll deductions on a bi-weekly basis, so 26 pay periods in a year. And each time there's a payroll deduction, the county also takes its portion of the budget funding number and moves it from the general fund into this fund account here, which it represents the risk pool board fund. Now, in that top part of their summary report, you can see there's a lot of other line items. So there's one for life insurance. There's also, I think that's the primary one there for life insurance. So this reflects their accounting of the source of all the revenues that come in. That includes year-to-date amounts that come through on the payroll deductions from both employees, retirees, and the periodic contribution from the county's portion that they contribute toward the premium. You can also see too, it's toward the bottom, pharmacy rebates show up there. And so, and the auditor's report is a fiscal year. So this is October through August in this report. They got 1 month to go. And if you look under current year to date, second from the right, there's a number 767,000 right above the 100,000. That's the row for pharmacy rebates. So that reflects 3 quarters of rebates. And of course, this month we'll get the 4th quarter. You can see it's averaging right just pretty close to $250,000 per quarter. And then the projections in the renewal offer from Aetna show that they anticipate on the same pattern of utilization that will grow closer to 1.4 million in the next year. So that's where that $400,000 comes out of that number that they have. So those are the sources of the revenues that come in. And then there's also some interest earnings. Interest rates are not very good right now. So let's see, this month, $1.59 in interest. There's not much money in our account either. But then you can also see down below in the report, they have the expense portion. The first part is administrative expense, and that would be the stop loss premiums, the administrative fees we pay to Aetna. You also have any other administrative fees that you pay, like for COBRA administration, employee assistance program, et cetera. And then the big ticket items are down below, claims expenses. And so up above, was a line, a row for revenue on life insurance. So the county pays for life insurance, a basic life insurance amount for all employees, and employees can buy additional life insurance at their own expense. Those revenues are reflected in the top part of the report. At the bottom, since that's a fully insured program, the county takes all those monies and turns it over to the life insurance carrier. So it becomes a wash. So the total numbers that you see in the auditor's report is more than just the health and the dental plan. It includes some other revenues, and it also has the Medicare Advantage plan that's fully insured for retirees greater than that are Medicare eligible. So that's their accounting of where the revenues come from. And so if we switch back to the hub report, so near the top, in just below the gold line or yellow line, is our number for projected annualized contributions. So what we show in our report is our calculation based on average enrollment, monies that come from the county and all payroll deductions and from retiree contributions on an annual basis. And then also we put the revenues from pharmacy rebates into that row as well. The infusions that the county has been making, we haven't been booking as revenue, but in the auditor's report, you'll see on that page we were looking at before, they track infusions and they're part of the revenue equation. So in our reporting, we put those figures down in the lower part of the report, where we see the numbers for starting fund balance and ending fund balance. Since those aren't scheduled periodic contributions to the plan and they just happen all cycle, those have been added into there to net out where the fund balance is. So in looking at the report for this month, in the middle column, when we get down to the estimated fund balance on December 31, now we're projecting, and this would not take into consideration the ARPA funds that are going to get transferred. It does anticipate the rebates. Rebates are already buried in the revenue line up above. But now we believe you'll end up the year with about $1.3 million in the bank. And the end of the year for us is December 31. End of the year for the auditors is September 30. And so then we move over to the projection for next year. And the way the chart is set up is it says if we didn't do anything, we didn't change any of the funding, there's a gap in the funding and it needs a 37% increase in funding. And so that's where the 37% number comes from. And so, and that would be approximately to replenish that $9.9 million deficit right above that very bottom row. So that part's already in motion with the court approving the pay reductions, the plan designs, and their contribution factor. And hopefully we'll weather the storm and we'll get out of the infusion business and back to business as normal here. Any other questions? So it's interesting that the money is all the county's money that comes into the plan. So it originates in the general fund and then they move it into this fund. But it's still the county's money, stays in the county's bank account until it has to be spent.
So do we have a department here at the county that does the forecasting for New Year's? Or is it Hub that does forecasting?
Hub does the forecasting based on the claims and based on the trends, inflations, and things of that nature. Our county auditor, through the development of the county auditor letter, which is the one that Randy was referencing to, our auditors also do some forecasting, but it's not based on claims. It's just based on the revenues they see coming through and the expenses.
Okay, and then the letter from the auditor, it states tax pool and tax pool prime and health benefits fund. So how many accounts do we have?
So there's two accounts, those are the ones that generate the interest, but we've moved, well, the county auditor moved those funds from those accounts into just a basic, health and life fund account, because they weren't bringing in any interest. And so, but they have those accounts where the county auditor moves money around, so there's a development of interest. And I know our county auditors are on the call, so if they want to further expand on differences are.
Yes, this is Jim Utterback, County Auditor's Office. What it is in the letter, we state the tax pool prime interest, and the Advantage Bank interest. Advantage Bank is giving us 0.5% interest, whereas tax pool and tax pool prime are considerably lower on their interest rates. So we have moved all the funds over into the Advantage Bank, and the health fund is in a separate checking account from the county's consolidated fund, which is the general fund.
Thank you, Jim.
This is Barbara Franco with the County Auditor's Office also. And I know at least one member of the board is rather new. To give you some history, we used to invest most of the money in tax pool and tax pool prime because they had higher rates. But when the Fed rates dropped, we had a contracted rate with the bank. And so it became more beneficial for us to move those funds back to the bank instead of leaving them in the investment accounts.
Okay.
But we keep an eye on it on a regular basis. So if the interest rates in the investment pools go up, or we find another vehicle that has a higher interest rate that's still safe to use, because safety is our primary goal. It's not yield, it's safety. Safety's first according to the statutes. Then we will move it to the other investments. But right now, the bank is the best investment for us.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Any other questions? This meeting?
Sorry, Randy.
Stop kicking me.
For my boots.
These are really great questions.
Give me those eyes like.
I just want to make sure you get any questions in.
And Joanna got disconnected, so she's trying to connect back.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Sorry, Tommy has no internet.
You using Wi-Fi?
No, well, I was disconnected. Okay, now it's me.
Berenice, Ms. Franco has her hand up.
Okay. Barbara, did you have a question?
I didn't have a question. I just wanted to make one comment as clarification. Earlier, Randy talked about the $600,000 that would be transferred from ARPA funds. And
Yes,
that's the current amount that we have to transfer. I just want to make sure the board knows that the budget for ARPA funds is higher than that. And as we get claims that are investigated and it's allocated because it is an ARPA expense, we will be doing more transfers in the future. And I think the Commissioners Court approved up to $1 million at this point. But if we need more than 1 million, they can go up to 3 million. They just have to go back to the court, is my understanding.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
Hopefully, we don't have any more claims extends. It's kind of a good news, bad news. In order to get that money, we have to incur the expense, and that means somebody had to get treated for COVID, et cetera. And it's not all COVID-related expenses. The county's had close to $3.2 million of COVID-related expenses, which include treatment and testing as well. And then a fair amount of the claims expense too on our top claimant. There's a COVID diagnosis buried in the top claimant as well. And so, of course, even though that claim is over $1 million, the county's only on the risk for the first 300,000. So, but we've been working with Aetna to set up the system to track the data so that they, if there are additional expenses that could be deemed eligible for reimbursement from ARPA, then they'll provide that to the county so they can make the appropriate transfer.
Pretty curious, how does the county's COVID cost compare to your book?
It's a little bit higher than our other clients here in the El Paso area. But there's some areas where, it's just, we've got 2 other county clients that are on the border, Webb County in Laredo and Cameron County in Brownsville. And in Laredo, where they have only about 1,200 employees or half your size, they had over $6 million of COVID-related expenses. So it was just not good there. And frankly, what happened there is early in the pandemic, an outbreak broke out in the jail. And before anybody realized it, it had transferred not just from the sheriff employees in the jail, but as they, moved around town and went back to their courthouse or wherever their duties took them, it just spread like wildfire early in the pandemic there. In Brownsville area, they're about 1,700 employees and they've had about 1.6 million, so a little bit lower here. And then in our other public entities, especially here in this area, is pretty much on par with the county. Now what's pending and happening is, most recent information usually comes in the newspaper, then you got to wait a little while and make sure that it's accurate or right. But one of the things we're focusing on, and especially as it relates to the ARPA funds itself, is the treatment for long-haul COVID-related expenses. And there's not an industry firm definition at this time of what long-haul COVID is, because it's just now happening and they haven't been able to figure that out. But I think even today in the El Paso Times, there's an article on children and long-haul COVID too.
Yeah,
so just because infection rates are down or hospital admissions might be down doesn't mean we're out of the wave of the impact of COVID. And some of the long-haul complications are pretty serious.
Oh, no, yeah, you're right. I was just curious because of the fact that, El Paso specifically has been leading the state in vaccination rates. And I was curious how it might affect this number, so it sounds like it had some impact, but not a lot.
Well, I've been moving around the state this year, and I feel a whole lot safer here in El Paso than anywhere else.
Isn't that amazing?
Just knowing that our fellow El Pasoans, we have a really high vaccination rate this year.
And right, the long haulers' story is yet to be told. It's coming.
Some people haven't, they don't even know it. They don't know the place. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays. So let's see, page 20 is the comparison of 12-month moving average cost of revenue versus expense. See there, the big gap, which is cost me. And then following page is the 6-month measurement time frame, and that's a little question. You can see too how the month of July, the red line jumped pretty substantially. So it's just shy of a $3 million. So the remainder of the report is the pharmacy portion, which is that page that you're looking. And this is just the high level overview. And it's, again, even though it's starting to trend down a little bit or level off, which is good news, it's still the same story in terms of looking at, for example, the demographic part. We're essentially got 20 less employees covered under the plan. than the prior year. So not a big change in enrollment. When we drop down into the key statistics portion, and we see the amount paid per member, that's where you can see what's happening is that the number of claims is not increasing, but the cost of all faster than the cost of pasta at the soup. It's supposed to skyrocket. So, and that's seeing the same thing trend across our book of business, not just here, but all across the nation. The cost of prescription drugs have just continued to skyrocket. And again, the largest portion of that comes from specialty drug, which is why being able to get to a point where we can kick off the food RX program, which will continue even greater manufacturer money to come back, be beneficial. So we've got as many of our clients that are willing to do that. That's our across the board recommendation. We're going to have to find a point where the county figured out and working with that how we contractually intervene. So kind of going back to the RFP, in the purchasing department, if there's, you can only do business with the people that you award contracts to process. And so back then, CVS did not own that. And CVS, the True RX program didn't exist. So the contract amendments that you approved are basically just saying, oh, by the way, CVS met the same thing. So that brings CVS into the picture. And then CVS's contractor, True RX, now can administer the plan and be compliant with your purchasing and contract. So that's good that we figured that out.
Well, and to go back to what I asked, if we do exclusive, we could get additional.
Yes, if we were to narrow the network, it wouldn't just be exclusive. So typically when you narrow, I mean, I guess you could say it has to be CVS. But when you say that, you're saying it to every person everywhere they are, not just one person. So if it's somewhere, if it's a student away at school, there's not a CVS store, there'll be none. So typically you wouldn't just narrow it to one pharmacy chain. But what you would get the savings from would be to take one of the other chains and cut this figure to the curve, and that would be Walgreens. And if you were talking to Blue Cross and Blue Shield, they partner with Walgreens. So the conversation with Blue Cross is, let's take CVS. So that would be the only change to the network is removing Walgreens, but you could still keep your local mom and pop pharmacies, other Walmart, Albertsons, drugstores, those would still be.
I've seen that happen, and it was a significant savings, actually, in both one pharmacy. I didn't like it.
Yeah, it would be, I guess it comes into the definition of significant. So what would happen is that the discount factor part of that equation would go up a little bit more. That would just be for all the people that migrate over. Yes, all monies.
Yes. Thank you.
Sure. So in this part, on page 24, it still shows in the middle of that chart generic utilization. 82% of all things are generic drug. So that's good. Anything over 82%, I think, is good. And that's without us having a mandatory generic rule. Also see here, let's see. Oh, I thought that was the patient had the mail order. Mail order runs about 9%. The following couple of pages are just ranking drugs by class and frequency. Last page of the report is the specialty drug summary, and that's page 27. So there, these are high cost drugs, and the drugs that are highlighted on that page are the ones that would be considered specialty drugs. So you can see two in the bottom, current percent of specialty drug spend compared to the total pharmacy spend is at 32.7%. A year ago, when we were looking at this report, it was more like 21%. So you see in the same thing, there's some prognostication in the industry that number could grow to 50% time. So there's still more high cost drugs in the pipeline that'll be coming in. That would conclude this report. Let's get the other question.
I never cease to be amazed at the total number of the pharmacy at the bottom. It's huge. With that said, I'd like to ask, if there's no other questions of Randy, the motion to accept the monthly report from Hub International as presented. Second?
I'll second.
Trustee Asensio,
Aye.
trustee Van Hook,
Aye.
trustee Rosado.
Aye.
Vice Chair Salcido.
Aye.
Chair Quilty.
Aye.
Motion carries. Discuss and take appropriate action to accept the human resources monthly report to the risk board. Regular agenda item number 11.
Thank you, Joanna. We only have 2 items to report to you today. The first one is we're very proud to announce our grand opening for our fitness, the Employee Fitness and Wellness Center. We're going to be having that event on September 29th at 10 o'clock. So we are, due to, of course, our current circumstances, we have a limited in-person guests that we can have. It is going to be in an outdoor area. It's going to be right next to the fitness center on the lower level, where it's going to be the event side of the courtyard. So we will be reaching out to you, Chair Quilty, to seek your direction, since we are not able to have all board members attend at once. We would be, having to go
We
through
can
the.
rotate, right?
Yeah. So of course we'll get with our legal team to see
Right.
those, but we will be having a live stream, so our IT team is going to be helping us with that. So we will be providing you all with at least a virtual invitation where you can view the grand opening via your computer. So we will touch base with you to see which direction you'd like to go, and then so we'll hopefully have some of our board members present. If not, if you can join us virtually to see that event virtually. So lots to come, and we're very anxious to open our doors of the fitness center. The next item is, as you are aware, our open enrollment is right around the corner. It's scheduled from October 1st to October 31st. This is where the employees will have the opportunity to log into the online enrollment system, verify their contact information, verify their beneficiaries. Extremely important. And also to enroll in new benefits or re-enroll in their current benefits. So they'll have an opportunity of 31 days to make those elections for the new plan year. We are sending several educations through via mail, through a brochure where they're going to have a QR code where they can just take a picture of it and they'll take them to the website where they can, log in and do their open enrollment. We're also sending virtual admin emails reminding employees of the open enrollment and all the changes that are going to occur. We have our staff going to several different departments throughout the county, advising them of what those changes are, reminding them to make sure to log into the open enrollment system and make those elections, whether they're electing to make elections on their medical plan or other benefits, the importance of that. Also, throughout the month of October, we'll be hosting open enrollment sessions both via virtual or also in person. So we'll have, of course, limited space, but we will have the opportunity to meet with the employee in person should they choose so. So we'll be very busy in the next couple of weeks. with our fitness center opening and having our open enrollment session. Those are all the items we have for you today.
I have a question though.
Yes,
For those employees that do not have computers at home or at work, will you provide them with a computer where they can sign in?
absolutely. With the help of our IT, folks, our IT team, especially in the road and bridge, in Faven, in Campillo, we set up laptops in those warehouses, so to speak. And we, of course, let the foreman know that we're gonna be there so we can allow their employees to go and make their elections to that computer. Absolutely, we try to make it as easy as possible for our employees, especially those that, based on their position, that they don't use computers.
Thank you.
Yep.
We've had incidences in the past whereby some people didn't get on board in time. How often are you sending out the notifications?
Where we started in September, we're going to determine and letting them know it's coming, so we're reminding them. But I want to say in the month of October, either daily or at least once a week, we are going to have a new system which is called, well, we currently have our Everbridge system where we contact employees via their phone. So if they have, their current contact information, we have a system where we can send a mass text or a phone call to employees directly. So we're going to be able to use that system this year, where we're going to be sending out text messages at least once a week, hopefully more, reminding employees to log into the online enrollment system. We'll have the link right then and there because they can do their enrollments via their phone. So they don't necessarily need a computer to make their enrollment. So we're trying to, as much communication through the different methods that we have available to us to send that communication.
So that includes the county judges?
Yes.
The other thing is, those people who do have trouble traversing the system, is there in the system, whether it's through the internet or through their phone, back to a link through their phone, is there in the system one or more points of contacts for help?
Yes. So there's, I believe we provide our email address. We have different phone numbers of where they can call to, if they need assistance with their equipment.
Is it bilingual?
The system itself, no, not bilingual.
We have offered services, so should they meet with us in person, we'll go ahead and sit with them and translate, basically.
Is it possible that it could also offer it through FaceTime or WhatsApp?
We'll do it through the team system.
Teams? Okay.
Yes, last year, because we couldn't have any in-person sessions whatsoever, we did do a lot of the teams where we, shared our screen and we showed them, this is where you go, or they would share their screen and they would ask us, okay, where do I go next? Or what do I do?
I want to commend the HR department. I'm not surprised, but I want to commend you for implementing the QR code. That's phenomenal. That's a big deal going forward.
Yes, especially now, a lot more people are familiar with what that is. Because, when they go to restaurants now, they have their virtual menu, and so they take a picture of this, this little barcode. So we're thankful that now more employees are aware of what that means.
Thank you. All right. So with that said, can I ask for a motion, please, to accept regular agenda item number 11, which is the monthly report from our human resources department?
Make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Trustee Asensio,
Aye.
trustee Van Hook,
Aye.
trustee Hurtado,
Aye.
vice chair Salcido,
Aye.
Chair Quilty.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next agenda item would be training. Item number 12, receive principal board trustee training pursuant to section 172.007 of the Texas Local Government Code and Article 9, section 9.1A of the principal board bylaws.
And we're going to be doing part 2 of the technical training. This is the training that Armando did last meeting. He did part 1. So we're going to move on to part 2. I do want to advise the board that next month's meeting, we will have our budget director, Wally Hargrove, who will be going over a financial training. This is going to be more in depth of how the health and life plan works, how the medical plan works, and how the the revenues come in, expanding more on what Randy explained during his report. So we'll be having that training next month. I'm sorry, we'll have it in November. It's going to be out that date that we will be meeting in October. He told us that the first week he'd be on vacation. So sorry, it'll be in November. And Randy, correct me if I'm wrong, did we stop at the slide here?
Yes.
Yes.
Page 20. Armando wanted to be here to finish, but he just had another issue pop up that he couldn't get here. And he messaged me saying he was going to try to make it. So we're almost done. There's only 18 pages left and some 9 pages. So we're in the section now, reach and what are the responsibilities to the plan sponsor or to the covered entities they're correct to use if there's reach. So it's fairly easy to understand. A breach is the definition here, unauthorized access or use or disclosure, which compromises the security, information, or the privacy of the information that they're saying. And so breach means you have to notify the impacted members. You have to notify Department of Business, Labor. But so there are some exceptions to the rule. If it's just a little accidental one thing, there's like, it's like I left a sheet of paper, somebody saw it, you don't have to report that. Just need to make sure that you protect all of your PHI. And of course, there's anybody that has access to PHI should periodically go through the HIPAA training like we're doing right now today. And the people that have access to that is not everybody in HR, but some people in the benefits area. Of course, in the auditor's office, they're receiving detailed claims feeds, check registers, information like that. So anybody that has access to that level of information needs to pay attention and adhere to HIPAA and do the periodic training. And so we go on to our next slide. So one of the things that the county should do periodically too is just review its practices and procedures to make sure that adequate safeguards are in place to protect the PHI. And if it looks like there's a breach, then step number 1 is to confirm that it really is a breach and how did it happen and what are we going to do to mitigate that in the future. So of course you find out what is it that got released, who has it, did they just see it, did it accidentally be transmitted to them, and then what's the ramifications of that. In my experience, the biggest breach that I've seen in many of our clients was caused by a change in the eligibility feed to a carrier. So, and that's what a little bit TB plays here too. So TB takes in the information for who's covered, et cetera. Dependent names, dates of birth, addresses, all those things. And then that, of course, that same information resides here in the county. But years ago, one of our clients in another city, in the eligibility feed, somebody took one row of data and edited it or deleted it inadvertently. And that caused all the other rows underneath it to move up. So in that eligibility file, there's like a row that says, this is the employee. And then the next row is, and this is their spouse, and this is their kid, et cetera. That one row got removed out of the file transfer. It took everybody's name and moved it up a notch. Now, all of a sudden, on the other end of the receipt, the carrier was Humana. Humana gets a file feed that says Randy lives where he lives, and his spouse is Donna, even though my spouse is Diana. Even if everybody's name got moved up, all these dependents were mismatched to the employee. The carrier, just in your case, would be Aetna. They just say, whatever you sent us as the eligibility feed, that's your responsibility. It's the gospel truth. We'll update our records and pay claims. So if Humana's paying claims, and all of a sudden employees are getting explanations of benefits, somebody else's kid, they're wondering what the heck's going on. And so that was a breach. It wasn't an intentional breach, it just happened. But it still was a breach that impacted enough people that they had to go through the whole notification process. So sometimes it just happens by accident, but that's why, you know, making sure that you vetted all your vendors and checking when you're exchanging information. You know, the great thing about computers and technology is they do everything you tell them exactly at a high rate of speed. And so you tell them something wrong and they just do that wrong thing just like that. So it can happen unintentionally, and because that also plays out into what do you need to do to make sure that this never happens again. On our next page, so it's just kind of, and this is really just kind of FYI. And so I know Trustee Van Hoo comes from a hospital environment, and they have a whole lot of HIPAA protocols that they have to adhere to as well. Their HIPAA training looks a little bit different than the one for a plan sponsor as a covered entity. But part of this, in terms of when the breach happens, what has to take place next is then you have to notify the person whose information was breached. They need to be notified. If we accidentally have a breach at us, because we receive a whole lot of PHI information, and we store it securely in our systems as well. And we're an extension of the county as a business associate. And so if we have a breach, we have to notify the county and provide them with the details. And then, based on the severity of the breach, the county covered entity would need to notify Health and Human Services. I said Department of Labor earlier, should have said Health and Human Services. And if it's a huge breach, you sometimes have to notify the media. On our next slide, you have to provide the notice of the breach within 60 days. I would hope that we do it a lot quicker if the breach happens. No need to let somebody hang out there for 60 days. And it has to be in writing, as you can see, and you deliver it via first-class mail. And you have to notify the media if more than 500 people are impacted at the same time. So you kind of see the same thing too when the credit cards or the banks or Google or whoever gets breached and they put it out in the news, 1 million people's records were just accidentally released. So here, if it's over 500, we've got to bring the media into play and notify Health and Human Services.
You're on page 29.
And within the notice, now it's just kind of running down the things that have to be included in there. When it happened, what got happened, what you're doing to protect it, what you're doing to mitigate it in the future, and then give them an avenue to make an inquiry and ask questions. And so I believe also earlier, in the earlier part of the training presentation, all employees have a right to come to the county and ask who their information's been shared with. So there's certainly, like Armando had gone over before, there's certain things that happen that you don't need an individual's permission to share their information. And that again is what they call the payment, treatment, and operations of the plan. And so those things you don't have to ask for permission. And so like when we go out to bid and we're releasing claims data and things like that, we don't have to have a person's permission there. And then, and then the definition of PHI can narrow, it's anything that can reasonably identify that person. So when we're doing RFP work and assessing the market, A large part of carriers' ratings is based on demographics, the age, the gender, dates of birth, gender, the zip code where they live. And then sometimes, in a smaller population, it doesn't take too much information for another person to deduce who you're talking about. And it could even be talking about a low birth weight baby born in the month of July, at Providence East. And somebody in the room could say, I know who that is just from what you just told me right there. You never said a name or whatever, but in certain populations, just that little bit of information could be enough to identify who that person is. And ironically, the same information on a life insurance application, name, address, date of birth, social, all that, is not PHI. But you take that same enrollment information and put it in the bucket for the health plan, and it becomes protected health information. So the best thing to do is just treat all of that information as confidential and not blur the lines as how it crosses back and forth. So on the final chapter, second to last, policies and procedures. So I guess, it's just kind of normal to conclude that you need to take steps to protect the information. You need to have areas that are private for conversations, and you need to store your records separately too. So again, the same information, if you had a personnel file that had a life application and a health application in the same place, then a person that doesn't really need to see PHI on the health application, they shouldn't be able to open that one file and find it there. So you need to compartmentalize your information and make sure that you only share it with people that have a need to know, or what I would call the minimal disclosure necessary rule. They call it the same thing. And I'd apply that same rule to everything, not just PHI. If you don't need to know it, there's no need for us to share that information. And then when I first came into this business back in '85, and Mr. Coulty or Chairman Coulty could probably relate to it, it was an eye-opening experience for me, because I realized even way back then, your insurance agent knows a lot about you. And so, I just would tell people like, well, I wonder what this guy does. I wonder what he makes. I wonder where he works, whatever. Like, if you ever want to know anything about somebody, just find their insurance agent. That person knows a whole lot of information about it. So the industry by itself collects a whole lot of information. But just because you have it doesn't mean you should share it or use it. And again, you should not have open conversations and discussing PHI as well. In our office, our data analytics director, Debbie Lopez, she likes to walk around the office, especially by Armando's desk, because if we're working on something and you have the computer up and there's a screen there, if he steps away to go to the restroom and she walks by his desk and the screen's on there and she puts a tag on his screen, it's like, you need to turn that off when you leave your desk. Same thing, if you have PHI, you can at least turn it over, lock your office, put it in a file cabinet, lock it up, secure it. Email and electronic communications is where I see a lot of times that people are in a rush to try to resolve an issue. It's a claim issue maybe, and it's got the person's name in it, and they just like, hey, can you help me? And shoot, it's out the door. But anything that has PHI, you should make sure it's secure. Okay. So our next page 33. Again, as far as access goes, just make sure you control access to the PHI. It's not just for visual use. On page 34, we're talking about the security portion there. And this gets tricky too, because now the PHI can reside on the flash drive, it can reside on the computer, it can be on a cell phone. And so there needs to be certain steps that you take if you lose your computer, drop a flash drive, lose your. So, and I know in HUD's policy too, we can use a company phone or we can use our own personal phone, but if we use our own personal phone and it gets lost, we have to make sure it's set up with HUD. We report our phone if it's lost. The first thing that happens is all information gets wiped. So if they can get into my phone and open it, it'll be wiped. So I dropped my phone in the pool a couple of weeks ago, and I couldn't salvage it. And it's like, I took it to a place like, can you make it work? Because I knew as soon as I called them and say, phone fell in the pool and it's dead, then everything on it disappears. The cloud account, everything, it all goes away. So all my personal information. So when it happened, my wife said, you should call them. I'm like, yeah, I want to see you fix it first because I don't want to go through a week of waiting for it. Ended up having to get it right. So those are things that you would do to make sure you have the proper safeguards in place. And then in our role too, we go through continued training on cybersecurity. And one of the, some common ways of introducing a threat to a system is to just take a flash drive with a virus on it, drop it in the parking lot of the place you're trying to penetrate, see if somebody picks it up, takes it in, and plugs it in their computer to see what's on it, and all of a sudden there's that. So you should be aware of things that could happen, especially if you store the information on the flash drive. So it's really good idea. And next slide 2, destruction PHI. So the Sarah Princeton reports off and I use it. As soon as I'm done, there's no need for me to take a paper copy of anything and put it in a file folder, unless it needs to be a permanent record. So we try to do as many things as we can electronically and keep paper out of our hands. And so, but if you have paper PHI and you're through using it, you should destroy it and shred it. So we have several shredding bins all around our office for shredding. We're also moving our office 1st of October from the building formerly known as Chase to the new Westar building. So we've been, for the last few weeks, we're going through any paper records, and of course we don't want to move anything that we don't really need anymore. But we have the PHI file, which has to be shredded, and then we have the just stuff that needs to toss, and that can just go straight to the garbage. So same thing, just want to have a mechanism to be able to destroy the PHI. And then for electronic, I know here it says this, deleted or whatever, but as you've seen, FBI shows, the media, just because you hit delete doesn't mean it doesn't exist on your electronic copy. So you actually have to wipe it and remove it. Deleting just means you took the name of the file and removed it from the registry, but it's still there in your computer. Wiping it means you took it and actually took it off of there and made it disappear, or just destroy it. Business world safeguards on the next slide. That's just, again, common sense. There's a few people that still use fax machines. I don't know if anybody still uses fax. Now fax can be done from your work area to send fax. Make sure your area is clean at the end of the day. Lock your office if you feel you should. And just make sure everything's all locked up. And then in our office, well, sometimes we fudge a little bit, especially if the county comes to visit us, but in our office, it's a standard practice because we have offices with doors, we have people in the open work area. So when it's an open work area, if you have a visitor, you should escort them in and out. And so, even maybe to the restroom. But there's sometimes in years past where the county would come over so frequently, like, we used to have it walking all the way to the front desk. And then sometimes it's like, yeah, you know where it is, it's over that way, just put that. So enforcement, so there are both criminal and civil penalties associated with it. And there have been some times where I've had some debates with purchasing departments during an RFP where they're saying, you need to give this information out. I'm not going to, that would be a HIPAA violation. Like, well, it's a bid and everybody has to have it. Where you have open records and they ask for it, then they should get it. Like, okay, well, then you give it to them. I'm not going to get it because there's a civil and criminal penalty that could impact me. And I'm not going to go there. I'll go everything that's legit in terms of doing what you asked me to do. If you're gonna ask me to release PHI, then I'm not gonna do that. So I had a pretty big run-in with some purchase departments over the years where they're saying it's public record, you have to get it out. And I have to just admit you do. So the Office of Civil Rights takes a look at the situation, and they can impose civil penalties and monetary penalties too, which are coming up in the next couple of slides. And you could be audited by the HIPAA police, but it's not a very high frequency thing, especially these days too, where the government has limited personnel available. They're not out conducting technical judgments. And attorney generals can bring suit against you as well. And most of the time, unless it's just really, I guess if it was like a deliberate act that they incur, most of the time, from what we've noticed, they'll come in, they'll identify some deficiencies, and give you an opportunity to fix those. Because it's all about making sure that information is secure. And so there are several levels of penalties that can come up as well. Sometimes, again, if you take action quickly and it's not a big issue, they may not even answer the call. But they would give you 30 days to do that. And they can give you a little bit longer time depending on what the issue might be. Because there's a difference between a small retail operation with 30 employees in the county of El Paso, thousands of employees. And so if it was designed to be scalable and addressable, and it has a lot of statements, just take a reasonable approach to what you think. If you made a good faith effort to secure things and abide by the law, then you should be very good to go. You should just be able to prove that you did a good faith effort. On page number 41, this is a range of some of the penalties that could be imposed. And so, an inadvertent, I was just an accident, really didn't mean it, just happened, and they decide to penalize you, and it could be as high as $59,500. It's very substantial. If there was some reasonable cause, that it wasn't just an accident, I don't know what they're going to use to define that. And I don't know why they started at 1191 and kept it going to the same 5922. I guess just create the level 2. But number 3 and number 4 is where things get more serious, especially number 4, which is you deliberately went out with the intent to obtain the information and to use it. And there, the top 5 could be over $1 million. So leave that pretty well gets us to the end of the training, which is we should do this every year. And the board doesn't necessarily receive PHI, so all the information that we share with you has been de-identified, so it can be displayed and shown. The same thing should apply for any information that rolls up to commission support. So, but it's good to have understanding of what is HIPAA and what is not HIPAA. And for that, go back to the very beginning of the presentation. And basically, HIPAA and PHI is information generated by the health plan or the covered entity. And so that same information, like I said earlier, it could be generated by a life insurance application, not PHI. It could be generated by the health plan. It is PHI, same information. And I would say the same general rule applies. No good deed goes unpunished. And so I don't recall it, Armando went over one like that, but especially in HR and especially in benevolent operations, there could be a situation where of an employee that just got diagnosed with cancer and they're in a hard time and you want to have a fundraiser to raise some money or do whatever for them. So you send out an all points bulletin, everybody come down to the gym this afternoon. We're selling barbecue sandwiches to raise money for Berenice because she has cancer. And that could be because Berenice said I had cancer and it wasn't generated by the health plan. But because HR is in that position where there's this crossroads of information, later on when Berenice doesn't get a raise or she gets terminated, she decides to come back and say, you know what? you violated my PHI, you took information and you shared it with the public or the community and they didn't want to. And now you have to go back to say, well, did we first know about it because she told us, or did we know about it because we saw it on a check register or whatever? So the best thing to do is just, do what you want to do to help people, but probably let it be somebody outside of HR that decides to do the fundraising. And that would conclude our HIPAA training.
Thank you, Randy. With that said, I'd like to ask the board to please for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Trustee Asencio,
Aye.
trustee Van Hu,
Aye.
trustee Usado,
Aye.
vice chair Salcido,
Aye.
chair Pilkey, motion carried. It is now 2:51 p.m. The regular meeting of the Board of Trustees for the County of El Paso's Risk Pool Board is now adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.